To understand what the kingdom of God is, we first have to understand what an earthly kingdom is. And we don't quite get the full picture of why Jesus came unless we grasp the concept of a kingdom. You see, back then when Jesus was on the scene and when he was announcing that the kingdom of God was coming, they knew exactly what he was talking about. They were expecting a king to come and to deliver them from all of their troubles, but they didn't get quite what they were expecting. In this video, I'm going to talk about what is a kingdom. There are a few things that all kingdoms have, and the first one that I'm going to talk about is a king. A king is the embodiment of the entire kingdom. If the king is evil and corrupt, the kingdom will be evil and corrupt. If the king is honorable, the whole kingdom will be honorable. If the king is truthful and kind, the kingdom will be truthful and kind. All authority reigns from the king and his word is supreme. Whatever the king says goes. And I know what you're thinking. You're like, bro, I can't get down with one person having all that power. We've been through this. It never turns out good. And I get it. Those are very valuable concerns. And I'll discuss the nature of a king in another video, but for right now, for the sake of this video, we just need to know what a kingdom is. Second, a kingdom has a territory, which is the domain that a king exercises all of his authority over. His resources, the people, all are property of the king. The king owns everything within the kingdom. All property are his, all resources are his, and therefore a king is considered Lord over all. And since a king is Lord, that means he has rightful ownership over everything within his kingdom. In Psalms 24:1 it says, "The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. The world and all its people belong to him." And once again, I know what you're thinking. You're like, hold up. Ain't this why we broke free from England? This on some King George type stuff right here. I don't know if I can get down with this. You telling me that a king owns not only me, but he owns all of my land? And I'm telling you, yes. So we see that a king has a territory to reign over. I mean, he wouldn't be a king if he didn't have a territory to reign over. Third, a kingdom has a constitution or a covenant with its people. This covenant, it expresses the mind and the will of the king to its citizens, which is very important. Basically, it gives an understanding of the citizens' rights and privileges that the king gives them. An example of this is the Constitution of the United States of America. The Constitution gives every citizen his rights and lets them know what their rights are. If you don't know your rights, people will abuse you. But if you know your rights, you can exercise the power of a country. Fourth, a kingdom has citizens. I think this goes without saying, but citizens are people that live under the rule of the king. To be a citizen in a kingdom is not a right, it is a privilege. You are a citizen by the king's choice. The benefits and privileges of a kingdom are only accessible to its citizens, and therefore the favor of a king is always a privilege. Now this is a very important point. The king is obligated to make sure that he takes care of and protects the welfare of his citizens because their welfare is a reflection on the king himself. And the number one thing that a citizen is supposed to do is to make sure that he or she is staying in the right standing with the king, which is where righteousness comes from. All righteousness means is being in right standing. Next, the law is the standards and principles that are established by the king. In other words, the way that the king wants to run his kingdom is the way that the king will run his kingdom. We have no say about it. And the law is to be obeyed by everybody residing in it. And to obey the law means to have access to the benefits of the king and of the kingdom. When you violate the law, that means you are going against the king. And the law of a kingdom is not subject to change. Doesn't matter if the culture changes, doesn't matter if there is a debate. Whatever the king says goes, and his word is law. To rebel against the law means you are rebelling against the king. And the last thing that I want to talk about that a kingdom has is a culture. And the culture expresses the nature of the king through the lifestyle of its citizens. A culture distinguishes a kingdom or a nation from all others around it. These are only a few things that defines a kingdom, and we are one step closer to seeing what Jesus truly came to do. And the invitation is always open. To my kings and queens, I invite you to the kingdom. Till next time.